You're watching a TGM production.
Hello and welcome back to Tom Mason, the interview. Yes, the series where I interview a varied selection of celebrities. Now, as I like this admin, there'll be more interviews from me very soon in a very small window. So get excited about that. But we shall crack on. My guest today, best known for taking some of the greatest photos at comedy gigs, is one and only Steve Byrne.
Look at what a great introduction. Hello, Tom Mason, hello. Fantastic to be here.
And no, so we shall start at the very beginning, because Julie Andrews once said it was a good place to start and should not run around so far. How did you get into the world idol comedy?
Well, Tom, I've actually done nothing else. I was obsessed with magic when I was growing up. I loved magic. I was in the Young Magician of the Year final, 19 blah, 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 or something, a long time ago. And I just, I went via the magic way. So but then I was massively into comedy as a child growing up. My parents used to play The Goons, and I'm sorry I read it again, on LPs, on vinyl, obviously then, or on radio. Yeah. So we grew up in quite a comedy literate family. I think that's what I've got a twin brother who's very funny as well, but he's more funny socially and I'm quite quiet socially, and so he went into teaching, I went on into stand-up. So from there I did a summer season. I didn't know what was out there. It was a long time ago, and I applied for this summer season down in Devon and Cornwall.
Yeah.
And I got it. I mean, I did a kind of 10-minute audition with 10 minutes of material I had, and I had to do a 50-minute, an hour show, which I had to then kind of find and work out. And I think I got it because I was coming from an alternative kind of side of things, rather than mainstream, because the kind of those kind of scenes were very much mainstream comedians. So I think they were taken back or surprised by my kind of comedy. So I did that, and that was pretty successful. And then I came back onto the London circuit and just did the clubs.
Yeah. And why do you think that alternative has had another resurgence now in the modern world?
I think that, I mean, the alternative comedy is the mainstay now, isn't it? I mean, the old mother-in-law jokes and all this stuff, there's a twist to it now if you want to do alternative comedy. I think ultimately alternative only means that you're not doing misogynistic or homophobic or ist jokes. So I just think that it's all blended into one now. I don't think... do you think it's had a resurgence? Or
Yeah, because I think you see more... There's more... I would think that alternative now is like your character comedy or your more absurdic, like musical comedy and less. There's not as much as it, but there is that end of it. So it's like having one, but there's a lot. When you go to the BBC New Comedy World, you see the ones that are technically what you would traditionally call alternative, because they're not the same as us. Then, do you think that's the case?
Well, there's always been a tradition of really kind of when I started, there was some mad, wonderful acts, you know, like the Iceman who used to thaw a block of ice for his whole act, and there was you know, jugglers and all kinds of, I mean, variety really, and that's the stuff I really like. That's the stuff I was brought up on, or kind of magic and variety and weird and wonderful stuff. I love one-liners and I love observational stuff. I do think that there's hopefully there's a resurgence of the manic and the madness. I think it got a bit homogenous. I think it got a bit, can I say, boring in one sense of people trying to maybe get on television and please the gatekeepers and such. And I think maybe it's a resurgence because now a lot of people are using social media rather than the traditional ways of making it famous.
Yeah.
So you can have crazies now, which I think is great.
Yeah, and I think that when you see certain people on the circuit. I think I can't remember the person's name, which is really bad at me, but Frankie Monroe, I think, is one of the top 10 keen examples of you can take one joke that might seem simple doing a character, but then spin it on its head a million miles, and you can tell that that's alternative. So not many other people are pretending that the owner could be in Rotherham with a portal to hell. Not many people are doing that because not many people think it's sensible. You think it's really weird. Do you think that that's what helps you to stand out in this world? Because there is more comedians now than you would have had 10 years ago.
Maybe. I do think social media and that those kind of platforms that you can develop and experiment with characters and stuff helps that move forward. I think it's ever changing, which is great. As long as I mean, still, if you think about it, Phoenix Nights in a way was doing that all those years ago. That kind of feel to it, but I don't think it's. I think it's just. It slowly changes as we go along, and it's. I love the idea that people can experiment much more. I mean, Edinburgh was the place where you could do that a long time ago now, but that's become much more of a corporate entity, so you don't want to fail up there. But now you've got, I think social media is the place where you can experiment without losing money.
Yeah. And one of the other things you do that is, it's incredible because there a lot of people would do this, and the way you do it, it makes it more interesting because it's from another angle to that same sort of genre, if you will, in the live stage genre, we're calling it. But where was your passion for photography of comedians come from?
Well, because ultimately it's you do what you know. I mean, I've been on the circuit for a long time, gigging, and I used to do all the clubs and toured with people, Frank Skinner and Craig Charles and Omid Jalili a little bit. So I've been embedded in that world for a long time. My mum was an artist. When I was doing the circuit, I actually was into photography then as well. I did a darkroom course at Battersea Art Centre, so I kind of learned how to do my, in the dark. I wasn't very good at it, but I was really into art and also into photography throughout my career. So I did a few pro jobs for Victim Support, was a magazine that I did a pro job for. I remember someone bungee jumping off a crane in the South Bank, and I had to get up on the crane and shoot the guy bungee jumping. So I was doing, and I did I think a shoot with Princess Anne as well. So I was actually doing photography as I was doing comedy, but it kind of just took over. So I then just took a little point and shoot backstage, and I started just snapping kind of portraits of comedians, but not set up portraits. It was very much in their environment. And then I think it was Bob Mills or a few other people just said, well, why don't you do something with this? So so I thought, actually, I started putting them on social media, Facebook and things like that. And then someone else said, well, why don't you do a little book? So I asked the comedians for a one-liner joke of theirs, 4 or 5 facts, and when they started comedy. Yeah. And then that turned into this little book, Comedy Snapshot, which was kind of, people said it was the Bible of backstage. So if you weren't in it, you know, but the fact is that there were some, people like Joe Branley, Mac, Harry Hill, lots of people in that one. And that was pretty successful. And I thought, actually, I'll do another one. So I joined with Unbound, and we did a similar thing called Joker Face. Yeah. So the people I missed out in that book, I put in that one. Yeah. So I always had a little camera backstage. And then from then on, it turned into something a bit more arty. I thought, actually, I really like doing this. So then I really wanted to document the comedy world. Now, I mean, there are other photographers doing it, but not to the extent, and also they're not really comedians, they're photographers. So I have this access to all these, wonderful backstages. So I did a lot of backstage stuff after that.
And you mentioned your book there, and comparing it to traditional book in the world of book, how is the process different for a photography style book than it would be your traditional book?
Tom, the world of publishing is still a mystery to me. it's so intriguingly, annoyingly hard to fathom what's going on with it. I got so frustrated with how it all works. So Comedy Snapshot I did through a little publishing agency, a friend of mine. Joker Face went through Unbound, and so they took it, but then they've fallen apart now. And the two art books, which I'm really, really proud of, the Comedians and Comedians 2, I went through. I didn't go through a publishing house. I did it myself through a really brilliant Italian printers, and so I don't really understand the publishing world. I think it's hard for anybody who's not known to get published.
Yeah. And when you, like, in the design process of the book, is the layout of who's next to who, or which photos you use, is that more important to you, or do you just muddle it up and put any photo anywhere because you think that it'll just create more attention?
The first one, Comedy Snapshot, was just a artistic design choice as I was looking at the pictures, but they weren't arty pictures. They were kind of little portraits, so they're still art in a way. Joker Face, I decided to do it very similar to Comedy Snapshot, but I did have people who were connected with each other, like married or partnered or father and son. I secretly put those together, although a lot of those are split up now, so it's a bit of a kind of a weird one. The art books, I had a designer on each of the same design on those books, and I worked with him to think, well, where are the pictures going to be placed on the page? So, it was a process, definitely.
Yeah, and telling off the back of that, when you hear about photographers, they're all like, one of them shooting a photo of a polar bear and all of them having their head chopped off. And then they display the photos, and people, oh, interesting, and they're really just looking at the teeth of polar bears. But what's the process like when setting up an exhibition for your photography?
Well, I've had a few exhibitions, but I mean, I'd like to do another one this year. But it's what's the process? I think I as an artist as such, you choose the stuff that will work well. I mean, at the moment, the first one I did was called Back to Front, so it's backstage to front stage. So I have backstage pictures and then front stage, on stage pictures, and I just choose the ones that I think are the best. I think if you get to a bigger gallery, then you will have someone who will help curate it and say, well, let's put this one together, and maybe have different sizes of photographs. At the moment, they've been very similar size photographs in my exhibitions, but I'd love to do. I mean, the one of Mike Gunn shot through the curtains of Live at the Apollo. No, it wasn't Live at the Apollo. He was supporting Lee Mack. Yeah. And that's one of my favourite pictures. That got shortlisted for the summer exhibition, and it was a bigger size than A3. I got it, but I'd like to have that massive that picture, because there's so little light in it and a lot of blacks in there that it would look great, huge on the wall. It would cost a huge amount of money to print it big, but I'd love to do that. So I'd love to get to a position where you have a really lovely exhibition where you have different sizes and all this stuff.
Yeah. And some of your photos are displayed in this sort of, well, I'm trying to make it sound more grandiose, but in black and white. Why do you think that black and white is so important when it comes to these photos? Because when you look at them as an outsider, like me, you can see the emotion more. Why do you think the black and white is so effective in doing live comedy photography?
That's a good question, Tom. I think it takes away layers, but adds layers. It adds layers of light and takes away, obviously, the colour. So, in its purest form, I just think it has a timeless quality to black and white. I just think it takes your eye away from the colour, which I do think colour photography obviously has its place, and I think it's beautiful. I just think that what I'm doing, the kind of documentation, often works better in black and white because of just you're looking at shadows and light and different. It's just there's a timeless quality to it. Yeah.
Because I think that if you go to like a concert and you look at the like a professional photo, then it's like I don't know, Oasis performing. You can that's great, but when it's in black and white, you can sort of feel that you're in that room and you can feel you're in that environment because it's more personal because that colour's stripped away. Do you think that's why black and white's more successful in a sense of it makes you feel more emotion than it would do if you're looking at something in the same colours you would see if you were actually there?
Yeah, that's true. That's an interesting point, isn't it? Is it because if you're showing it in black and white, you're not showing the reality of someone who's seeing it live, as you say. But I'm not sure that's the case. I think it's to do with just the light and the shadows. I think you're just taking away something that I mean, the thing is with colour photography, there someone like Martin Parr, who sadly died recently. He uses colour in a different way. Other people will use colour.
Yeah.
I think with black and white, most black and whites, they're not the same because the subject matter's different. But the actual black and whites, if you get a very good printer, someone who's very good at printing black and whites, are going to be quite similar in their colour, black and white, than they are with the colours, because I think you can pull and push colour in a different way you can do with black and white.
Yeah, and when you see the black and white photos, especially of people on stage, to me it makes me hark back to the times when you could watch Sunday Night the Played in black and white, or you could watch like any variety show in black and white. Do you think that that's another reason why it appeals to so many? Because there's enough people that will remember watching things in black and white.
Well, that's a strange way of looking at it. I'm not sure if that's the case, actually. I mean, I think that people might recollect old photos that were shot in black and white, like some of the jazz, the old jazz bars in New York or something like that, or where there's some amazing jazz, I don't know, artists, and a lot of those were shot in black and white, or even war photography or stuff that before colour came along was shot, so people minds might be going that way. I'm not sure.
Yeah, and stepping slightly away from snappy snippy, it's the new term I'm going to use. But one of the other things you've done that it's become obviously become a success, but I think it's also important at the same time. What was it like working on Abnormally Funny?
Well, that's something I set up, actually. So I was co-founder of that with Simon Minty, who's I went to school with, a really good friend of mine. And so we did that. We had our 20th anniversary up in Edinburgh last year. And that was a bit of a hurrah, a bit of a celebration of what we've done. It was a fantastic experience. It was when we started it, kind of comedy and disability was slightly ghettoized to some extent. So, we have done, in a way, looking back at it, we were very proud of what we've done. We brought kind of disability comedy into the mainstream. In a way, Abnormally Funny People, this is what we said last year, is kind of not needed anymore. That's why it was a celebration, is there are so many amazing comedians with disabilities who are just mainstream and just fantastic. So we had a great time with it, really good time.
Yeah, and what I think is a really clever move that not as many people utilise as possible, but when you were celebrating the 20th anniversary last year, it was a cracking video, might I add, but the video utilising, and I don't know what the name of the song is, but it's the Live 8 opening Paul McCartney thing, thinking about 20 years ago today, and I think that is the perfect song because you can do so much with it, because it's you can alter it in the one, whatever, but I think it works so well that it showcases the range of talent you've had working with you, and it showcases that song works so well for so many different things. Why do you think that why was that idea approached to celebrating that way?
Well, I think each time we did a big show, so we did a 10-year celebration, and when we started, Sky TV at the time did a documentary. So each time we tried to get all the acts that we've had to do a little snippet, as you say, of a song, and we just came up. I think Simon came up with that one. We kind of searching what would be a good song for it, and so then we just got everybody who would be, well, not everybody, because I think we asked Chris McCausland, who was one of our original people in the lineup, but I think he's so busy now. So, but I, ultimately, you just get snippets of each act singing in a line or something like that. It was just Simon thinking that was a good idea, and I thought, yeah, it is a great idea. So that's how it kind of came about, really.
Yeah. And I think that what also makes it, and I don't know if anyone actually noticed it, but what also makes it even more interesting is that, if I'm not mistaken, I think I will be right. The last year was 40 years of Live Aid, and then they made that documentary, and then they included a bit about Live Aid involved in it, and I think it made it even funnier to me, because it not only were you trying to celebrate your own anniversary, also then linked into something on a bigger scale, because the BBC had made a lot of things about Live Aid. Did you notice that at the time when you were doing it?
No, that's what's lovely about art and comedy and photography, is that people do look into it in different ways, and they take what they want from it, and I think that's great. We didn't think about that, but I'm glad you did.
Yeah. And why do you think that when you first say it, why do you think that it was important then, and why do you think that it's sort of that got better now?
With disability in comedy, or abnormally?
Well, with both, really.
I think it was important then. I think Simon was very much involved with the disability world, and I was very much involved in the comedy world. And Simon knew someone really high up in Sky who said, where is the representation of disabled comedians in the UK? And we put it all together. So then I think it was really important.
Yeah.
I think it was a great thing to do. And over the years, it's just, as you say, as I said, 20 years later, it's a celebration, because it'd be lovely to do it again. If we had some funding to do some more shows, I'd like to do it, but it's not really needed now. You've got so many, Rosie Jones, Chris McCausland, Liz Carr. There's so many people who are not breaking through, that are through. So it's lovely to celebrate it now. And also what's lovely about this last year's show, is that the whole idea of Abnormally Funny People was to continuously bring in new comedians with disabilities, new talent. And we had people that we'd not seen before doing a couple of shows here and there for us. And you just think, actually, it's alive and kicking, and it's going to carry on going. People know that they are not... There's a platform for them to do their comedy, totally.
And you mentioned that people like Chris McCausland. I think what's really interesting, and you notice when you get older, you notice now more than you did. I think that when I first saw him on TV, which was, now thinking about it, a little bit ridiculous. He was on a program called Me Too, and the one thing I always remember was, it's all about a story. So he drops his kids off. He then goes to his work as a market stall seller, and something goes wrong and he has to then fix it. And the thing that went wrong in this one episode, that I didn't think about it then, but now thinking about it now, you can sort of see what the problem is there, is that he sold the wrong orange to the wrong person. He didn't see which orange was coming out. And at the time, you think, oh, that's really funny. You don't think of anything, but now when you think about it, you go, bang on. That's now sounds ridiculous. So do you think that it's like a positive role model that so early on in sort of like, let's say, his career, if you will, he was able to break the boundary by be on a children's show where not many of the children will actually ever notice or ever think about the fact that he's blind?
Yeah, to some extent. I mean, Chris is an interesting example, actually, because he was the only one, in a way, that kind of kicked back of being a part of the show, because I understand where he was coming from, because he didn't want to be wanted to be a part of a show that was all with. He wanted to be a comedian because he was funny, and not because he was in a show because we were using people with disabilities. And so he was always, a lot of his, he mentioned it once or twice on stage, and then his whole act was about observational comedy about his life, and it didn't really touch on much about him being blind. So he played it really well, and he was always on the idea of him being, and ultimately sort of abnormally funny people was always about you couldn't be in the group just because you were disabled and a comedian. You had to be funny. The idea is, so you had to have a disability, but you had to be funny. And Chris took that even further and said, look, I'm going to mention it once or twice and that's it. So I think his early career was, he didn't really want to touch about that. But I think it's inevitable now because he's so big now that he does talk about it a lot more. But
yeah. And do you think that when you see not just Chris McCollum but other people in that realm, I'm going to use the term, but technically it might not be the correct term anymore. But the big time, do you think that sort of demonstrates to you that what you did all those years ago has now made an impact? Because you saw a market that needed to be addressed, and now you see that it's skyrocketed.
So what was the question? Whether you've
noticed that you've made a bigger impact than you first might have thought?
I think the idea last year, it was a big celebration, but I think it was. I think we were a cog in that wheel. I think it might have happened anyway. I think we helped it along its way. To take the full, of us doing it. I don't think that's fair. And I do think that we were just part of something. I think we pushed it forward. And I think hopefully it would have got there anyway. But it was lovely to be a part of it.
Yeah. And as yourself, over the years, how has your style of comedy evolved?
I think I'm not gigging that much at all. I did pantomime, which is my way of being on stage. So I was in pantomime for 2 years now. So I was with Eddie the Eagle Edwards in Rickmansworth, in Beauty and the Beast. So I was the funny character. Yeah. So in a way, my comedy is evolving by me doing that at the moment, because my stand-up, I'm not really gigging that much. I think it evolves as you get older and I'm quite manic and mad and one-liners and guitar and props still with that magic idea in my head. So my problem was, I think with a lot of people, is that you've got to carry on evolving, otherwise you get tired of it and you kind of not become irrelevant. But so I was in the era where I was maybe gigging too much and doing things like Jongleurs, where you have to do a really tight 20 minutes, and it's to hen and stag nights, and there were a few very clever, funny people who used that as a way of moving forward and changing their stuff and experimenting. And there was a lot of us who just thought, I've got to get through this gig because I need to. So you just did your best 20 minutes. So you stop evolving, and I think that's really bad. I think you've got to carry on writing stuff and performing new stuff as you go. Be fearless. I think that's the thing.
And you mentioned panto there, and I think that what I find fascinating about panto is when you hear about such a body, you recognise off the time you're in sport, isn't it? But it's like you don't think they'll ever do panto. My favourite one is like Giant from Gladiators. He's not going in as himself, he's going in as Giant. And it's like, I understand why he's done it, but it makes no sense. I like Beauty and the Beast, but it's Giant from Gladiators. It's going to be in it. It's like, that's just going to make no sense. It's going to fall in the context, obviously, but it's going to make no sense. Why do you think that celebrities who wouldn't normally do this, and why do you think that they're like wanting to do panto? Why do you think they target one panto?
money. I think there's a couple of reasons. I think that one of them is the financial aspect of it. I think the stars, or however far down the line they are, they still, because they could put bums on seats, they are a viable financial investment for the theatre or the pantomime production company that puts these on. So, to be fair, they are still, it's like he's still in entertainment. He that is still part of entertaining the crowd, and it is really good. I mean, it's hard work, but it is actually really good fun. I mean, if you've got a good company and everybody gets on. I mean, I've done one where you do get some prima donnas and it's a bit hard work, but generally, if they get on, it's grueling, but it's really fun, really fun. And I can understand, these celebrities thinking that is a way of, it's a whole chunk of December, most of December, all of December. And so, if they're getting paid really well, why not,
And in your point of view as a comedian, what drew you to Panto? Is it because it's something, or do you think it probably harks back to a version of entertainment that you don't see as much on screen anymore?
Yeah, it's a very kind of British tradition, and you try and mention pantomime to anybody else and they just don't get it. And I like that idea. I like the idea of it being very slapsticky, very funny. It can be very funny. And as a comedian going into it, you can add lines to it and really muck around, play with the audience, a bit of improv as well. What was the question again? So why did I do it?
Yeah, why did you choose to do it?
Well, but it's funny because I've been doing this YouTube channel where I interview comedians or performers while I shoot them. So it's a really nice. And so I did one with Paul Zerdin. And so Paul Zerdin said to me, why don't you do Panto? He knows Nick, who runs PHA Panto, Paul Holman Associates Panto. Yeah. And I found out, so it was a bit coincidental and accidental, in the sense that then Nick emailed me and said, I heard Paul Zerdin mention this, and Nick's known me from the comedy world. I forgot that he's really loved my comedy all these years, and he's been trying to get me to do Panto for the last 25 years or something like that. And so 2 years ago, we did it, and then I did really well, and he did it again this year. So it was just a chance meeting with Paul, who knew Nick, and so that's how that happened.
And throughout this interview, you mentioned magic. Do you think that having that love of magic, do you think that sort of helped you to become confident enough when you went into stand-up comedy?
Not really. I think it's a weird one. It just got me into performing. So when I was a kid, I used to do children's parties, and so it got me in front of an audience. I think the step to doing, because I hardly do any magic in there now, it's many gags. I mean, Kerry Marks is a great comedian. He started out doing quite a bit of magic, and there's a few other people, and then they just left it behind. So maybe it helps you, having a prop or a guitar or something like that, it feels less vulnerable when you're just you and a microphone. So even now, I would be quite scared going on without any of my props and say, look, just do 5-10 minutes with just your gags. It'd be good for me. So I think it helps in the sense it gives you something to hold on to.
And how did this love of magic come about in the first place?
I don't know, actually. I there was something about it. I think I remember watching Paul Daniels when I was growing up, and all the guests he had on who were really good kind of variety acts he had on there now. And I'm always been fascinated and obsessed with skill. So whether it was someone really good at manipulation, which I was never good at. I got into card magic, which I'm do quite a lot of good sleight of hands and all this stuff. But and then anything that's skillful. But there's something about the mystery and magic I just loved. I don't know. There's something to do with the brain. It's very hard to explain. But it's quite a male thing, I think, as well. I think, years ago, the Magic Circle didn't allow women members, which was, it's horrendous. Now it does. But I think there's a lot. I reckon if you go to magic conventions, which I used to do a lot, it's very geeky. It's very boyish.
Yeah.
You know, not many. I think there's more so now that kind of girls into it. But yeah.
Yeah, and I do think that the Magic Circle, when you hear about the Magic Circle, I don't think it's really funny that you've got Nick Mohammed, Stephen Fry, and the King all in the same circle. Why do you think the Magic Circle is so mysterious? Is it because magic's mysterious, or is it because it just adds another layer to this world of magic that people are more intrigued by?
Yeah, I mean, like, again, it's a problem of the social media age and everybody exposing it now, because there was a time that Magic Circle was very secretive, or it would be very strict. If you told someone how a trick was done, you'd get banished. So John Lenihan, I remember years ago, I think he exposed something, but it wasn't really, and he got pushed out of the Magic Circle for years.
Yeah.
I mean, he's back in now, but so it was kind of secretive. It wasn't. It was a very bit of a boys' club, really, until it opened the doors. And I think it was just very prestigious. It was the Magic Circle, that was the place of magic. But it was in a way, when you go there, there's some lovely people there, and there's some brilliant magicians there. But it's also quite oldie worldy as well, you know.
Yeah, and when you think of the Magic Circle, you probably know this, Mum, but is the Magic Circle really similar to the train scene where there's a lot of people sat around a circle, or is it nothing, or is it just like a hall where people just sit around, there's no actual circle when they're all sat around their show?
It's not. I don't know why the circle is the zodiac sign, I think. But it's no, it's a beautiful little building. I mean, if you ever get a chance to visit it, it's just near Euston Station. And it's got a little theatre, it's got a museum with some of the really amazing artefacts, it's got a library, it's got a meeting room, it's got a little bar where everybody hangs out, and then you go to the theatre and you see a lecture. It's lovely. It's a really lovely place. There's nothing kind of clubby, Masonic. It's nothing, you know, people think it might be like a bit Masonic and, you know, Masons and all this stuff, but it's nothing like that. There's no rituals. You've got to get in there, you've got to do you've got to do a show to know that you're proficient in magic. And there's different layers. You can be member of the Magic Circle, member of the inner Magic Circle, so there are different things. But that's just of how long you've been a member, or how good you are, or what you've done for magic in the world of magic. So it's nothing to do with, handshakes and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's no one walking around wearing clogs going, "Whoa, come and join!" Whoa.
No, it's not wizardry or anything like that. It's just I think people can get quite obsessed with it and just really into the world of magic and how things are done, and people, so many books on and modern stuff as well. There's some really good stuff, really amazing stuff out there.
And I think that the way you describe them really does sound like the base of something really interesting, like documentary series. Because I think that would be really interesting to the inside world of the Magic Circle and taking people through so that it's less, people think it's like weird, but think it's more of a, oh, that's really nice.
Yeah, kind of. And I do think that the Magic Circle in a way has got to modernise to bring in. I mean, it is a business in a way. I mean, they do have open shows and theatres and Christmas shows where the general public can come in and watch the show, and they have tours of it as well. I just think that they do need some maybe. I think there is coming in now younger blood to PR it, because with all this social media, you can make it into something. Because they've got the Magic Castle in the US, and that seems to be much more of a business and more open to the public to watch shows and all this stuff, and I think people get caught in the idea that it's just this oldie worldy, which is it needs to break out into this century.
Yeah, and when you see people like Nick Mohammed, where he merges the worlds of comedy and magic, why do you think that those two disciplines work so well together?
Well, there's the kind of intrigue with magic, but also there's lots of comedy magic. That there are lots of people who do, look at Tommy Cooper. I mean, it just works well with comedy because people are taken down against how you write a joke. You're taken down with the setup. You're taken down one way, and then you reveal the punchline. It's very similar to magic. you don't know what the ending is.
And so as we get further and delve into your life, what advice would you give someone that might be watching this now that might want to get into photography, but in a sort of like live photography?
If you really want to get into it, go out there and shoot. I mean, it's the same with street photography. It's the same with portrait. For any kind of photography, any kind of discipline, any kind of art, do it. I think people are very concentrated on trying to get the right kit and trying to learn. You go to, same with comedy. You can go to comedy school or photography school and learn stuff, and that's good. You can learn the basics and how light works, how all the triangle of comedy of photography, aperture, film speed, all this stuff, how they all work and how they make a picture. But ultimately, once you learn the basics, which are not hard to learn, then you've got to go and do it. Same with comedy. You've got to go out there and you can do all the kind of studying of it on paper, but ultimately get out there and do it. And you can go to clubs and ask if you, as a photographer, you can sit in the back and take a few photographs. And you learn where the best angles are. You learn how to use the light or the lack of it sometimes, but the bright light. So there's a big disparity between what's coming on the stage and what's on the audience. So that's why you have to work out how to. But you can only do that by going out and shooting. Yeah.
And you mentioned the comedy school there, and I would think that if you went to a comedy school, there must be a long list of more people go to A&E because the sides could be laughing too much, because it would have been hilarious. That's a very important joke. And so as we cycle through the wonderful world, what upcoming project that you're working on are you excited for people to see, hear, or look at?
My big thing this year, I mean, I've been pushing it for a while, is my YouTube channel. I mean, I just think it's a lovely concept. It's a bit like Jerry Seinfeld, comedians in cars getting coffee.
Yeah.
But I think it's better because in the edit, the pictures I take as they're being interviewed, they go up in the edit. So it's quite poignant to see the shots going up as well. And we talk a little bit about mental health as well. So, I'd like to get some bigger comedians on there. I mean, I've had people say they would do it. People like Harry Hill and Al Murray said he would do it. And I've had Omid Jalili on there. I've had Shabby Khorsandi. I've had some, Nick Helm did it for me. And they're really nice interviews. So they go quite deep. I mean, they're very fluffy as well, best and worst gig and all kinds of things. And we talk about best photograph as well. So we talk about photography as well in a little bit. So I'm constantly doing the interviews, and like what you're doing, it's a kind of a podcasty thing. So I just like to either get it funded or to monetize it, which is very hard to do on YouTube nowadays. But it's a bit of a passion. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that what makes it interesting is, what I can describe it is when you watch portrait programs where someone's paid a portrait of a famous person, you get more deeper conversation because the person out doing the interviewing is focused on the main premise, like photography or painting, but you can also then get a deeper conversation because you're trying to get deeper viewing them for the outcome of the main piece, but you also get a deeper conversation because the guards are there and there's not a lot going on. They've got to just stay still or do whatever you need them to. Do you think that that's why you enjoy it more? Because when you watch it back, you see a new side of the person that you wouldn't have seen if you're on like Sunday Brunch.
Oh, absolutely. I think that what's nice about longer form, I mean, the problem with nowadays is people just want snippets but I like the idea of doing a bit more long form, 30 minutes, 40 minutes. I mean, there are, like Soft White Underbelly, which I don't know if you know that program. It's one where a guy, he's a photographer actually, but he's got 6 million subscribers and he's amazingly successful. But he interviews kind of drug addicts but people who've been in prison, mafia bosses, all kinds of people, and he's a brilliant interviewer because he lets them speak. He asks a few questions, what's your upbringing like and all this stuff, and they just talk. And I mean, I'm sure there's stuff in the edit, but it's fascinating, and I like that idea of getting much deeper into somebody. I'm not quite doing that because.
Yep.
But I do like that, yeah.
Yeah. And you mentioned that mafia bosses. Are they ex-mafia bosses or any actual mafia bosses? That would be dangerous if they're on the internet talking about the life of mafia boss.
Well, you watch some of those programs on software. I mean, I think, some of them have been in prison and they're out and they've gone straight kind of thing. But I think they're all ex-mafia. I don't think...
Oh.
Yeah.
I was worried for his safety.
But there are some well-known kind of ex-mafia people. I mean, proper. If you know that world,
Yeah.
you just think and he's properly talking to them about what they did. Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, and I do think like if you put them in situations that isn't just sitting on a talk show or a chat show or whatever, you get a better, deeper conversation with them because they're distracted by everything else that's going on in this different environment. Do you think that that's another way of them not feeling like they're saying the same thing over and over again because it's a different environment to what they used to in the interviews?
Yeah, to some extent. I think also it's a connection, isn't it? It's like most of the people I've interviewed I've known for a long, long time.
Yeah.
So someone like Paul Zerdin, we can have a laugh, but also if we want to go a bit deeper, you can, because I've known them for a long time. I think that's a big secret. It is about connection. It's about not necessarily friendship, but it's about an understanding that you're not going to make them. You're not going to go down a path that they could feel uncomfortable, but they're happy to feel uncomfortable because there is a connection. Yeah,
and I think that's what makes and you probably see this. Well, that's what makes a blood interview. So if you don't know them personally, you're gonna share an interest. It makes it easier to offer the conversation because you're into the same thing, then you can sort of approach it from that. Do you think that that's what helps when you interview someone that you've never really know really personally? That makes it easier because you've got a shared interest.
Well, look at us, me and you, Tom, going well.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, absolutely. I mean, the people have often said about the little interviews I've done is there is a kind of a shared passion,
yeah,
and a shared interest, and I get very excited and excitable if they mention something that I think, oh wait, if someone says when we talk about magic or something like that, then me and Paul talked about it a little bit, and you think, oh, because we know the trick, and we just get a bit kind of magic out on it a little bit, and it's fun. Yeah, it's great, and people can see that there's a warmth or a closeness to it. Yeah.
Oh, or some people say it's a kind of magic.
Yes. Who was that?
Queen.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. I was thinking of a magician, but yeah, it's Queen. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Queen. Or if some people don't know the original song, it'll be Joe Wilkinson. Or no, it's Bob Mortimer. That's been utilised for songs that the younger kids that from somewhere across that going, oh, that's Bob Mortimer, and they won't think of Queen, because it's a band, not a woman anymore. And so, as we draw a close to this excellent, extraordinary, and very funny interview, without giving away your home address, where can people track you down online?
Online? Well, I've got my website, which is stevebest.com, but my big one is my YouTube channel, which is at Steve Best Shoots. At Steve Best Shoots, and the rest of my social media is like Instagram is at Steve Best Pics, Pics, Steve Best Pics. So that's kind of my social media bits. Yeah.
And where can people track down a copy of your books?
That at the moment is on my website. Really, is the best way. stevebest.com. I sometimes do kind of open days, and where I've got a little studio close to me near King's Cross area, where I open up and I've got lots of prints, signed prints. I've just sold quite a few prints that are signed by the comedians like Harry Hill or there's I've got Omid signed a load, Jack D and people like that. So I've got lovely A3 prints that are signed, and they're very limited editions. So sometimes I open up shop and advertise that on my website, on my social media, to say come along this Saturday and have a look. And I always do them at a massive discount as well. So yeah.
And when you take a photo of someone like Harry Hill, because he's such a big personality, how do you go about trying to capture his big personality in a still photo?
I've got lots of pictures of Harry's been a really lovely person. He's actually written the introduction to my first art book, Comedians. Yeah. He wrote a lovely introduction, really nice. There's one picture that I took of him that is one of my favourite, and it was in my exhibition, but it's the back of him. So it's the back of his head. He's looking into a mirror, and you can just see his collars and his kind of bald head. So it's Harry Hill without seeing his face, and those are the kind of things I really like. I try and find something with my photography. I think a lot of people can take pictures of people, but I always try and find a different angle or mirror shot or something that's a little bit not the same. So yeah.
And it might sound like a side note, but it's interesting. There was a few years ago now, there was a really cracking Sky Arts documentary where there's comedians you didn't know that were into art or into adjacent areas of what you would still class as your Picasso, but it's like a little bit absurdity. I mean, 2 hours. It was Jim Moyer that was presenting it. It was 2 hours of comedians that you recognised but you didn't know were into this, making stuff for a gallery in the end. Why do you think that there's so many comedians in the art world in that sense?
I just think people who are into comedy or comedians are creative people, and I always thought I'm a comedian, and I think that pigeonholing yourself into that is not dangerous at all, but that was my identity for so long. But I do think that as a and it sounds a bit kind of arty-farty, but ultimately I think you're an artist, and I think you can do anything. I don't see why you should just, and that's why I think a lot of comedians are into other things, because they are artists. They why just stop at being a comedian? I think that you can do so many other, and I think that's why like a friend of mine, Mark Mayo, I saw the other day, he's a really good, he was a graphic designer. He draws people's dogs, of all things, but he's brilliant, and there's so many people who are really good at art and other artistic endeavours other than stand-up comedy. So I just think it's a natural thing that's artistic nature. Yeah.
And so, there we have it. Another extraordinarily hilarious interview. Dictionary worthy, but no one knows the word just yet. The Susie Dent yet presented. Obviously, if Susie Dent invents the word, you know that it's going to be in the dictionary, because who else would you trust with a dictionary? Susie Dent. And so, there we have it. There'll be more interviews from me. Will it be today? Will it be tomorrow? Will it be next year? Who knows? I know. So, remember... No, I don't know.